Betrayal. It cuts deeper than any blade, shatters trust faster than any gunshot, and leaves scars that time will never heal. In Brookhaven, betrayal didn't just end a friendship or a marriage. It ended the life of the man who held the town together. Before we start, like this video and comment where you are watching from. Your support helps us to bring more powerful stories. Now let's begin. Brookhaven, Mississippi, spring 1991. The morning sun painted Brookhaven Town Hall in warm gold, the kind of light that made the small town feel invincible. Inside, Mayor Charles Whitford, 58, sat at his oak desk with a steaming mug of coffee and a file folder marked Founders Day plans. For 30 years, Charles had been more than a politician. He was a fixture, the man who knew everyone's name, who stopped in the grocery store to help carry bags, who paid for strangers' lunches without saying a word. His wife, Margaret Whitford, always said, "Charles isn't just a mayor. He's the roots that keep this place from blowing away." At 10:12 a.m., Margaret called to remind him she was making fried catfish for lunch. He didn't pick up. At 11:30 a.m., Linda Gates, the town clerk, knocked on the mayor's door. Silence. She turned the knob. What she saw would haunt her for the rest of her life. Charles was slumped behind his desk, eyes open but empty. A dark, expanding pool of blood seeped into the rug. His crisp white shirt was pierced by a single, perfect stab wound over the heart. In his right hand, clenched tight even in death, was a torn scrap of paper. His left hand, bare, the gold mayoral signet ring he always wore was gone. The scrap of paper read, "You are done." The Brookhaven Police Department called in Detective Sam Harper, 44, a war veteran turned investigator. Harper was known for two things: never rushing a case and never letting one go. The coroner put the time of death between 9:50 and 10:05 a.m., just minutes after Charles's meeting schedule began. The wound was precise surgical, delivered with a blade about 7 inches long. There were no defensive wounds, no signs of forced entry. Whoever killed the mayor had either been trusted or feared. Margaret Whitford, wife, Margaret, pale and trembling, said Charles had been under unusual stress over a controversial land deal involving developer Victor Sloan. She claimed Charles had no enemies, but Harper could hear the doubt in her voice. Linda Gates, clerk. Linda confirmed Charles had 2 morning appointments, one with Sloan and another with history teacher Henry Walters. She saw Sloan leave at 9:40 a.m. but never saw Walters arrive. Victor Sloan, developer. Sloan was tall, broad-shouldered, with slick back hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. He admitted meeting Charles, but claimed they parted on good terms. When Harper asked about the land deal, Sloan chuckled, "Business is business. It's never personal." Henry Walters, teacher. Walters said his car broke down, preventing him from reaching town hall. A student confirmed he'd been at school most of the morning. Under the mayor's desk, crime scene techs found a fountain pen engraved with the initials RK. It was streaked with blood that did not belong to Charles Whitford. The scrap in Charles's hand was from the town hall meeting ledger, ripped from an entry dated March 3rd, 3 weeks earlier. That day's entry had no name, just anonymous citizen meeting. 3 days later, Margaret received an unmarked envelope. Inside was Charles's gold signet ring, cleaned and gleaming. Alongside it was a Polaroid photograph of Charles shaking hands with a man whose face had been burned away in the image. On the back, in shaky handwriting, "Justice takes time." Harper dug into Charles's early career. In the late 70s, before becoming mayor, Charles had served as county treasurer. Whispered accusations of misplaced funds had swirled then, but no charges stuck. Old enemies have long memories. Caleb Moore, a drifter known for sleeping behind the bus depot, told Harper he saw a man in a gray suit leaving town hall at 10:07 a.m., carrying a leather briefcase. The man wore one black glove and walked with a limp. The blood on the fountain pen matched Ronald Kane, a former enforcer for a New Orleans crime syndicate. Problem was, Ronald had been declared dead in 1990, his body pulled from the Mississippi River. Harper learned Ronald had a younger brother, Raymond Kane, who disappeared the same year. Rumor was Raymond assumed Ronald's name after faking his death. And Raymond? He had a limp from a knife fight in '88. When Harper showed Caleb Moore an old photo of Raymond Kane, the drifter didn't hesitate. That's him. That's the man I saw. Harper began to suspect the land deal with Victor Sloan was a cover for laundering syndicate money. Charles may have tried to back out, and paid the price. Despite the mounting clues, there was no hard evidence tying Kane or Sloan to the murder. In 1993, the bloody pen vanished from the evidence locker, killing the case. Brookhaven moved on. Sloan built his development. Margaret left for Arkansas. Harper retired in 2015, the Whitford case still gnawing at him. In August 2022, Harper received a package at his home. Inside was a neatly folded gray suit jacket with a faded bloodstain on the sleeve. In the breast pocket was a leather wallet containing an ID for Ronald Kane and a Polaroid of Charles Whitford's body in his office. On the back, in the same shaky handwriting from 1991, still not finished, DNA testing confirmed the blood on the sleeve was Charles Whitford's. But skin cells from inside the jacket matched a man very much alive, living under a different name in a small Louisiana town. A man with no criminal record, no history of violence, and currently serving as mayor. Relentless. That's the only word that could describe retired Detective Jack Harper as he stared at the case file spread across his kitchen table. 30 years since the murder of Mayor Charles Whitford, and yet every faded photo, every fingerprint smudge, still screamed unfinished. The official record said the killer vanished. Harper never believed that. On a rainy Tuesday morning in 2021, Harper's old police buddy Ed Morales from Louisiana called. His voice was low, urgent. "Jack, you're not going to believe this. The mayor of Port Bellamy, Louisiana, just got gunned down in his office. Crime scene's almost a carbon copy of your Brookhaven case. A small town mayor, a locked office, a pool of blood beside a toppled chair, and on the mayor's hand, a gold wedding ring engraved with the initials CW. Harper froze. Charles Whitford's ring had never been recovered. Harper drove to Port Bellamy under a curtain of rain. The local sheriff, Travis O'Connor, reluctantly let him inside the scene. And there, under the harsh light, the ring gleamed. Not just similar, identical. Harper whispered, "This ring was buried with Whitford. I saw it in the coffin." The coroner's report confirmed it. The engraving matched exactly, which meant someone had removed it long after Whitford's funeral. Reviewing security footage from Port Bellamy's town hall, Harper spotted a shadowy figure leaving the building just after midnight the night before the murder. The figure moved with a limp, slow, deliberate. It was a gait Harper recognized from decades past. Raymond Red Doyle, a former Brookhaven city clerk fired for embezzlement in 1987, and last seen the week before Whitford's death. The man had vanished like smoke. Margaret Whitford, now in her late 70s, lived alone in the same white Victorian house where she and Charles had once hosted garden parties. When Harper told her about the ring, her eyes welled. "Jack, Charles never took that ring off. If it's in Louisiana, then someone dug up my husband's grave." She hesitated before adding, "Charles, he wasn't the man everyone thought he was. There were meetings, late-night calls, people from out of town. He kept a locked drawer in his desk I never saw inside. Records showed that Red Doyle resurfaced in Louisiana in the early 90s under a fake name, Frank Delacroix. He had worked closely with Port Bellamy's mayor for years." And here was a chilling detail. Both mayors have been preparing to testify in a federal corruption case involving land deals, kickbacks, and construction contracts that span 4 states. Harper began to see it. This wasn't about one murder. This was about a network, a decades-long conspiracy. 2 weeks later, Harper and Sheriff O'Connor set up surveillance outside a remote warehouse on the Louisiana-Mississippi border. They watched as Red Doyle arrived, limping, carrying a battered briefcase. Minutes later, another man emerged from the shadows, one Harper had never seen before. Tall, expensive suit, cold eyes. The men shook hands. A small object passed between them. Too quick to identify on camera. Then they disappeared inside. Running facial recognition on the suited man revealed a name that stopped Harper's breath. Daniel Whitford, Charles Whitford's son. But Daniel had supposedly left Brookhaven for college a year before his father's death, never to return. Now he was here, decades later, meeting with the man Harper believed killed his father. That night, Harper drove to Brookhaven Cemetery under a moonless sky. Standing before Charles Whitford's grave, he noticed fresh earth near the headstone, disturbed soil. Digging just enough to check, Harper's flashlight caught the edge of a small, rusted lockbox. Inside were documents, bank statements, land deeds, and letters signed D.W. Every page tied Daniel Whitford to a money laundering operation that began before his father's death. Harper confronted Daniel in a dimly lit diner outside Port Bellamy. The younger Whitford didn't deny knowing Doyle. He didn't even flinch when Harper mentioned the ring. Some things, Daniel said with a faint smirk, are bigger than justice. My father learned that too late. Before Harper could press, Daniel stood, dropped cash on the table, and walked out into the rain. As Harper sat there, rain streaking the window, the realization sank in. This wasn't over. The Whitford murder wasn't a lone act of violence. It was the opening shot in a war for power that had stretched across generations. And somewhere in the shadows, Daniel Whitford and Red Doyle were still moving pieces on the board. What lingered with Harper, and what will linger with you, is the question: if the people meant to lead and protect the town are the same ones burying its secrets, who do you trust?